Alright everyone, yesterday North Korea hurled a missile across Japan. I've still seen some people, like I said for months. North Korea has already violated the NAP of its neighbors. It's already violated the non-aggression principle towards South Korea by threatening to attack and at some certain times in the past actually attacking things. Now, just because they decide to fire their artillery onto a more or less deserted area and only kill, 10 or 20 people as opposed to flattening Seoul, doesn't mean it's not a violation of the rights of the people of South Korea. Just because this missile didn't land on Japan, I guess what I'm hearing from some of the ANCAP side libertarians is basically, unless the missile is armed with an atomic warhead and hits Tokyo, it's somehow not a violation of the NAP. And alliances be damned. Like, we should just vacate the whole Pacific, abandon the Japanese, abandon the South Koreans. Why don't we just abandon Taiwan while it's at it? Let them get invaded by China. We'll abandon Vietnam. The Chinese can bully them around too. We'll abandon the Philippines. Let the Chinese gobble them up. Let's abandon everything. Let's let the Russia overrun Eastern Europe, declare the USSR again. Let's live in that kind of world. How wonderful would that be? There is a marked and fundamental difference, I hate to tell you this, for all of you who ramble so long about a police state. Do you not think, then, that you would be more averse to a world in which a nation like China has taken hold and become dominant as opposed to the US? Wouldn't that be a little bit worse? With its nuclear vassal, the DPRK, just gobble up South Korea and then become a full nuclear power because now you'll have the economic capability to do so. It won't take you 10 years, it'll take you 10 months because you'll be absorbing all those wonderful scientists down there and all the extra nuclear energy. What a wonderful time that would be. Go ahead and invade Japan, it's not a problem. We wouldn't want to be imperialistic, we wouldn't want to step on anybody's toes. Now I think that the time has come and gone at which we can avoid doing something about North Korea. And I've said that consistently. This is what they're going to do. They realize now they have this actually might be evidence that the Pentagon's report is actually right in part. I still don't think that they have miniaturization. I think that's bullshit. But they're getting towards it, and they've certainly got the missile capabilities to launch their weapons a lot further. And it's not just nuclear we're talking about. They've got a biological weapons program. That's probably worse. You fire off some plague missile into Tokyo, it's probably worse than nuking Tokyo. With their primitive atomic designs, which would just core out the downtown of a city that size, yeah, it'd probably be worse if a bioweapon hit. Or Seoul. They don't need to level it with artillery. They'll fire some anthrax warhead across the border. Aha, 10 million people died. Wonderful. Yeah, except that it's not going to stay within its borders anyway. It's spread to the rest of the world. People haven't thought of this fully. There's a big difference between North Korea and South Korea in terms of governance. If you believe in limited government and freedom, you should be backing South Korea. South Korea lately hasn't threatened to nuke the North Koreans off the face of the earth and isn't firing wildly missiles across its neighbor's land. If this isn't a violation of the NAP, what is? It's like it has to actually hit something before it violates the NAP. So fuck sovereign airspace. If somebody were to fire a missile across the United States from the Pacific to the Atlantic or vice versa, a nuclear-capable missile or whatever the hell it happens to be, you wouldn't find that to be problematic. No, that's just wonderful. I want to live in a world just like that. That would be really great for liberty. When we look like the pants-pissing cowards that won't do anything in defense of our allies. That's how you get a really, really fucked up world really, really quick. Because it's a microcosm of the grand chessboard. And this is why I can't be an ANCAP, because they don't understand this. You don't understand that a lot of what we see in the world is really about posturing. It's about two sides, neither of which can back down, that eventually get pushed to the edge of their stress and have to find a diplomatic solution. North Korea is not willing to do that. I don't consider Kim Jong-un to be nuts. Now, he's a rational actor. He's not totally crazy. He does some crazy things, and the state propaganda says crazy things, but that's the way it's always been in North Korea. And it's part of their posturing. It's part of the don't mess with us, we're crazy enough to press the button sort of strategy. See, the problem is eventually they will develop sub-based missiles, they will develop miniaturization, and then we will be powerless unless we want to get hit with a dozen atomic weapons to even defend our allies. That's what this is about. This isn't about worrying that North Korea tomorrow is going to nuke Los Angeles. They're not going to do jack shit against our mainland. Maybe coastal Alaska, maybe Guam. That's about as far as they can reach with the weapon systems they have now. That's about all they can do. It's not about that. It's about Japan and South Korea. What happens if North Korea, that shows a marked willingness to attack its neighboring states on a regular basis, even threatens the Chinese now? What happens if they develop a true nuclear deterrent so we can no longer defend South Korea without mass casualties? What they're hoping is that public perception here in the U.S. will be, oh, well, we can't risk atomic war. We've got to abandon South Korea. That's been their goal all along. That's been their goal for decades. Oh, all we have to do is straggle along and not get invaded while we get this sub-deterrent. Nobody's going to get involved. China's not going to get involved. You think they want to lose tens of millions of lives? No, they're not going to do shit. The Chinese will sit back and chuckle a little bit and send some more grain shipments to keep them from attacking. They'll bribe them. It's what they've been doing. You think that the Chinese government cares at this point about North Korea as a buffer? China's opened up to the world. They're too busy building string of pearls and rambling about Nicaragua Canal and building factories in East Africa. They don't care about North Korea. They know nobody's going to fuck with China. You'd be crazy to fuck with China. Yeah, we could destroy the nation of China, the United States. We have the nuclear arsenal and the naval and air superiority to do that. Why would we want to? We buy all sorts of stuff from them. They're part of the system of world trade. Why would we want to go to war with China? The Chinese government, when it says, oh, we will defend North Korea. No, you won't. They're not going to defend shit. If we were to invade North Korea tomorrow, the Chinese would back off. They would want concessions, of course. They would march in too. They'd say, oh, these mineral mines up here, oh, these are important for our economy. And there's one Chinese tourist in the city, so we're going to occupy it and refuse to leave. My question is this: what has to actually happen to violate the NAP? I use the analogy, if someone comes up to you, they've got a knife, and they say, I'm going to stab you. Does that violate the NAP? Are you allowed to preemptively prevent them from attempting to stab you? What if they draw it out? At that point, does it violate the NAP? What if they lift it up ready to stab you in the fucking neck? At what point does it become acceptable to defend yourself? Do you have to wait until you have actually been stabbed? That seems to be the ethos that's being used by the more far out there so-called libertarians that are also, they're like the open borders libertarians type. People need to realize this. Most of that is a bunch of ANCAP nonsense. It has nothing to do with monarchism. It has nothing to... Monarchism is, hey, we want to limit the government more because the government's become more abusive than a foreign hostile occupying force or a gang or anything else under the sun, and we're strangling our economy. We want to be able to get ahead. That's monarchism. Use the Constitution. The Constitution permits the U.S. to defend itself and its allies. I have no problem with that. The founders intended that to be the way in which this country worked. It was never in their minds that we would become a permanent military-industrial state. That much is very much true. But it was also never in their minds that we had to bend over and slap our asses and twiddle our thumbs and piss our pants and do nothing when we're being threatened. That was never in their minds in a million years. We used to go beat up on non-state actors anyway. Very early on, we used to go after pirates and slavers and all sorts of people, brigands and all sorts of groups of people. Oh, it was a wonderful time. We used to blow them out of the water. This is when our nation was in infancy. None of these people had a problem with going after someone who was actually being a threat to us. What they would have a problem with is proxy, dicking around in Iraq. Oh, we need nation building. That's bullshit. We don't need to nation build anything. Oh, let's arm some rebels in Syria. We don't even know who they are, where the weapons are going. Let's just arm them. It'll be a wonderful time. No. It's a bad idea. Oh, we're going to oust Gaddafi. You know, we're going to oust the only strongman capable of controlling this country so that it devolves into tribalism and expands groups that already exist and are threatening to slaughter us, basically. Let's march into Afghanistan, a nation where Osama wasn't even actually existing at the time. He was in Pakistan. Let's go invade them for opium reasons. Our founders would be ashamed of us doing such things. But they, I don't think, would have a problem with us gazing across the Pacific Ocean and seeing little Kim over there is firing missiles across our allies. Literally over them. Over their territorial waters and their land now. Yeah, sure, they've fired missiles before. They hit the territorial waters. I don't know that they've actually fired a missile right over Japan, though, before. Until the last decade or so, they didn't even really have much in the way of long-range missile technology. They're just barely developing two-stage missiles as we speak now. They're probably still prototypes, but I mean, they do have the ability to hit anything in Japan. They can hit anything in South Korea. Yeah, they can reach Guam. With accuracy, who knows? At what point do we get the right to respond? At what point? What happens, by the way? Here's another thing you got to realize. What happens if Japan declares it an act of war? Says, well, we're not dealing with this anymore. We don't fucking care what anybody else does. We're going to get involved. Then it would be a true bloodbath, because all those North Koreans have been told since day one, hey, the Japanese are basically like the US soldiers. They want to come in and burn your villages and impale the babies and stuff like that. The only group that they haven't been fed that propaganda about is South Korea. That's why they should take the lead. They should be the ones physically going in. I would never suggest a ground invasion of North Korea. The overall response, if US troops were to show up, basically all the peasantry would take up arms, which means, you get millions more people you have to fight. If it's just the South Koreans, a lot of those people won't even bother. They say, oh, yeah, we've been told that these South Koreans here, they're just our indoctrinated brothers, but they're still our kin, let's give them a chance. And they're very legalistic and very, they've got a modern fighting doctrine. They're not going to go around torturing people. You don't have to worry about that. The South Koreans, they've still got familial ties to people that are alive today in North Korea. Why are they going to go around randomly shooting civilians? Hopefully there would be no war crimes. Hopefully there'd be no atrocities, and it would be a quick, easy reunification once the artillery is silenced. But that's never going to get accomplished if we're not willing to step up to the plate. It's never going to get accomplished if we abandon our allies in the region. I don't want to abandon the South Koreans or the Japanese or anyone else. I suppose the idea is let's just not get involved. We can't play world police. There's a difference between world policing and maintaining our alliances. Those are important for a reason, because if we get attacked, they're our allies. They help us out. Well, one of them is constantly getting threatened with atomic annihilation on a weekly basis. The other one just had a missile fired across their land. Don't you think that's a provocation? And then people will tell me, some of the NCAPs, oh, but the US and South Korea are conducting joint drills. That's a provocation too. It doesn't involve firing anything into North Korea. It doesn't involve anything other than, hey, yeah, the North Koreans may very well attack South Korea at some point, so everyone needs to be trained to respond in case the need arises. And what does that have to do with Japan? This missile wasn't fired across South Korea. They didn't fire it to the south into the ocean. Some people were saying, oh, well, they were trying to be safe with this missile test. It's, it's longer range and there's nowhere else. Bullshit. There are plenty of ways they can fire a missile that it stays out over water. They probably didn't want to aim it too far north because the Russians might get involved. They didn't want to aim it too far south because South Korea would probably declare war. That's what they were worried about. That's what they say, oh, well, the Japanese are still kind of pacifistic. They won't do anything. We'll just use them as a missile test range. Just ignore the fact that Japan is there. We'll fire the missiles over them. What happens if one of them malfunctions and comes down over Tokyo or something? Would that be an act of war? Oh no, says someone who's way out there. That'll just be a mistake. So they'll just apologize. Oh, we're sorry we killed 10,000 people. It's okay. We're sorry. We didn't really mean that. We were going to fire it over Japan. It just malfunctioned. We're really sorry about that. That really makes the situation better. People have already died in South Korea as the result of North Korean artillery fire before in the past. There have been situations that happened several times in the 1990s. They're lucky the South Koreans showed restraint then. We probably should have gotten involved then before they had an active nuclear program that had developed any weapons. But back then, China actually cared about them as a buffer state. It was more, true mixed model, wasn't fully on the world stage yet, was still advancing, and they're like, well, we're going to maintain our buffer zone because we don't want to get fucked, basically. That's what they were after. Now China's all about money. They're not going to get involved. If they got involved at all, they would invade North Korea too, and they would steal some of that land up in the north. And guess what? Nobody would care. Nobody would care, because even the North Koreans trapped in that zone under Chinese occupation would still have more liberty than under Kim. They'd still be better off. China's wealthy. There are people in China that do very well. Think what you want about, the brutality and despotism of the Chinese government. It's not on the same order as North Korea. It's not on the same order. It's simply not. So yeah, I have a problem with it when people say, oh, we can't respond, the NIP wasn't violated. Okay. Yeah, just wait till they get a sub-based deterrent, idle a few subs off our coast, say, oh, we're going to use atomic weapons if you defend your ally. At that point, you've already lost. And that's exactly what they want. It is. Why do you think they have so many submarines in the first place? They're trying to develop... If they can't fire it out of a sub, they'll load it up on into a sub and arm it and idle it off the coast, say, hey, we're going to detonate the atomic weapons offshore. Oh, yeah. Underwater. Cause a little bit of a tidal wave, maybe. Irradiate some of your coastline. It'll be a wonderful time. Well, because the subs will be in electric-only mode, and because you can't really see them readily, let's float them right next to, I don't know, the port of Los Angeles, where, some inordinate proportion of all U.S. sea trade happens. I'll just idle it off Seattle and Vancouver area or something. San Francisco, oh, this will be fun. Let's drive it right into the underwater deep-sea tectonic trench and trigger an earthquake. Woohoo! That'd probably be more feasible than an EMP weapon. But people don't want to talk about it. They want to put their heads in the sand and pretend like this has some connection to Iraq and Afghanistan and all the other dumbass wars we've been involved in. We're still involved in Afghanistan, I oppose it. We're still involved in Iraq, I oppose it. Shouldn't get involved in Syria, never should have, in Libya. Those are disasters. We never should have dicked around in Egypt with the Muslim Brotherhood. North Korea is a different issue. People, I don't know what you're thinking if you think there's any connection between these two different groups at all. There is no connection. One is playing world police. The other is, hey, our allies have been actively threatened. Missiles are getting fired across Japan. The state is threatening to annihilate its southern neighbor on a fairly regular basis and actively bragging about achieving nuclear miniaturization. Now, the Pentagon's just taking that those braggy comments and extrapolating that they're actually true. I think they're at most half true, but it doesn't matter. They've still got atomic weapons. And people saying, yeah, but if we attack, Seoul will get flattened. It's going to get flattened because eventually we're going to have a war there anyway. It is inevitable. The North Korean regime would have to collapse on its own from the inside in order for it to be avoided. Do you think that's going to happen after, 30 years now of embargoes and sanctions haven't done it? What do you think's going to happen? They'll attain miniaturization, threaten to destroy anyone who gets involved, and they will reunify the peninsula under communist leadership. That's what will happen, and we have to prevent that from happening. We would look so weak. We would endanger our own existence too. Russia and China would chuckle and laugh at us if we allowed that to happen. Aha, they expended so much money and so much manpower for so many decades and they still lost. Ah, America lost its longest war. Now, we were defending democracy in the first place, one of the few functions of warmongering that had half a coherent point during the Cold War, during the height of the Cold War. Vietnam, different story. It's a little more complicated than North Korea. Yeah, just stand aside, let Juche take hold there. What do you think would end up eventually happening if they did that, if they invaded South Korea and we didn't do anything? China would probably take over all of Korea at some point. Say, well, we have the strength and power necessary to rule, and they would get involved. Or maybe Japan would get dragged into a war. Do you want to see them nuked? North Korea does have the ability to fly planes carrying atomic weapons across that fairly small amount of water. You do realize that. They have a chemical and bio program, too. That's even scarier. I would much rather an atomic weapon hit Rutland than a biological warhead. Because the biological warhead starts an epidemic, potentially, especially since order has broken down in the medical infrastructure. You got 20, 30,000 people immediately infected or something. That would spread a lot further than the radius of a nuclear blast. You should be more worried about their bio program than their nuclear program. But that's what they'll use as a deterrent. Maybe they'll say, we loaded anthrax onto a dozen submarines. They're off your coast. You better be really concerned. Maybe they'll do that. Yeah, I wonder, at what point does it violate the non-aggression principle? I wonder. I'd really love someone to give me an answer because, I'm up in the area. I don't even know. I don't know what you want me to say. That's about all. Peace out.